The June rate rise tomorrow, will it happen? A lot of economists are now predicting that we might in fact get another rate rise from the Reserve Bank tomorrow. There were some figures out last week about inflation that make it much more likely. A lot of mortgage holders will be hoping like hell that tomorrow at 2:30 Australian Eastern Time that the Reserve Bank doesn't jack rates up again. Charles Tarbey is the Executive Chairman of Century 21 and knows more about real estate than anyone in the country. Joins us now. I would have said a week ago, Charles, probably no, there won't be another rise. I'm not an economist, but you just got that feeling in your waters, really. But it now seems like it's much more likely.
Yeah, I'm with you, Steve, because we sort of predicted a change back in 2021 when 2024 we thought was very unrealistic. We didn't expect it to be so harsh. But after what happened last week, particularly with more money going to flow back into the economy, there's every reason why interest rates could rise, and probably not just once, but maybe twice or three more times. So I am greatly concerned that what's happening out there with the different handouts in some areas that are necessary, but also the different way money is flowing into the economy is going to cause some grief.
Real estate has, the prices have remained pretty resilient, Charles. I'll get your snapshot on what it's like around the country in a moment. But I was very intrigued by this idea from Philip Lowe, the Governor of the Reserve Bank. Have a listen to what he said in Senate estimates last week about, oh, well, if you're struggling, why don't you get a housemate?
So I've got a lot of people coming into the country.
A lot of people
wanting to live alone or kind of not move out of home, and it just doesn't. It doesn't work.
Higher rents
do lead people to economise on housing, don't they? Kids don't move out of home because the rent's too expensive, or you decide to get a flatmate or a housemate because it's so. That's the price mechanism at work.
Out of touch, Charles?
It's quite extraordinary, because I don't think the Reserve Bank can do anything wrong anymore, because there's no point in penalising them. They've been penalised so much it wouldn't make a change. He's right in terms of getting a property, but then they're not all talking to each other. Some 10, 11, 12 years ago, when I sat in this very studio, we talked about by 2020 we need to have 200,000 more homes built in Australia to accommodate the shortfall. And here we are today, exactly the same issues occurring. Yes, he's right, they need to buy a property. I bought property, my family bought property, and that's the way they've been able to build an asset. But it's too difficult to get anything done, Steve. Green tape, red tape, the processes you have to go through nowadays to get something done. And there are still some councils in the Sydney area where developers go to Land and Environment Court almost at the same time as they lodge a development application.
Yeah, they're not talking to each other. I think you're quite right. Let's talk prices just briefly in the short time we've got. Sydney prices up 1.8% in the month, biggest gain since September 2021, up 4.8% from January's low, the equivalent of a near $50,000 increase in the median dwelling value. Brisbane and Perth up also, almost everywhere around the country. Yes. How do we explain this when you've got interest rates going through the roof and people struggling to pay mortgages, but the prices keep going up?
Yeah, I think this next interest rate change, which I do think is inevitable, will probably slow that down a bit, Steve. I think what happened in the last boom, we went just a little bit too far. We went way further. People were overzealous in their bidding, and property prices went for a lot higher, and more real estate agents were actually charged by the Department of Fair Trading when they were talking about underpricing properties, and people were turning up auctions and throwing money at an auctioneer until there was no money left. What happened then was, when that change occurred, that crash came very, very quickly, but it only really came back to where it should have been to start with. And I think that's why we're seeing that slight growth in the market, but I do expect it to flatten out if interest rates move up again. I'm seeing very, very different views around the country from different offices across Australasia about their marketplaces. They're all in a very different place at the moment at exactly the same time, Steve.
Look, as you know, I live about 90 minutes outside of Melbourne. Anecdotally, just from where I am, there's a hell of a lot more for sale boards up in my area, Charles, and not many sold stickers attached to them, I've got to say.
And that's what I meant by different places. You go to Perth market, they're short of stock. You go to Adelaide, they're short of stock. You talk to agents in Brisbane, short of stock. The clearance rate at auctions is 20 points plus higher than there was this time last year, but the amount of properties going to auction is significantly lower. So it's there, and I can assure you in some areas across Australia, stock is still needed, but a lot of people are scared to do anything because where do they go? They've got to start again. They're worried about the interest rates increasing again. Do I just sit and wait? And I think that's probably what the order of the day is going to be over the next 6 to 12 months.
I must get you back on in the next couple of weeks because I want to talk to you about, in particular, Victoria and land tax, which is just killing a lot of people who might be buying or wanting to buy an investment property. Charles Tarbey, you always speak so much sense. Thank you very much for talking to us, mate. That's Charles Tarbey, Executive Director of Century 21.